What is the potential of this crisis for the emergence of a 21st century economy? I'm Shinta Oosterwaal, economist and executive team coach, and I'm asking forward thinkers, seers and doers, what now?
Okay.
Hi Jan, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Okay, glad to be here.
I'm meeting you virtually in California.
That's right.
Yeah. So Jan, you're the author of 7 books and your workshops have attracted thousands of people. Your work is focused mainly on transformation, flow, trauma, and the development of human potential.
That's right, yeah.
So I'm really glad that you're contributing to this series of interviews and that you're willing to be in dialogue about what is happening, what is manifesting now. So
Right.
Jan, what is the potential of this crisis?
Well, I've been thinking about it since you asked me a couple of weeks ago if I would do this. And I also was asked to contribute to a book about the whole question. And what I basically came to conclude is that moving from a vertical to a horizontal dimension, from the masculine to the feminine, from being told what to do to being involved in co-creation. And of course, the existing will not just step away, but I think that's going on, that there will be bottom-up movement. It's like the short version.
So you're saying that moving to the co-creation version is the feminine version?
Yeah, so like the feminine principle is connecting, empathy, understanding, listening, instead of telling people what to do. So what I think is the learning will not happen at the government level. They're too much involved in their own belief systems, but that there will be that is more local. And it's also one of the principles of self-organization is that things happen local, but they have an impact globally. And like you see a flock of birds, everything happens just in the local environment of the bird, but the whole flock moves in a way that is not determined by what is happening with the single birds. So I think so many things will happen locally that there will be a global movement that nobody is running. It will just happen.
So it will be really from the people.
Yeah, bottom up. Yeah.
But how does
That's
that
what
work
I,
for an
yeah.
individual?
Well, everybody will have to see what they can do in their own environment. And I think people are asking questions. And what is too many people are in fear. And of course, fear is not to take decisions about the future. There are also more and more people who ask different questions, like what is going on and what is my role in all this? And will I accept that there is a surveillance state all of a sudden? Like of course we have pretty difficult questions.
I didn't get what you said. You said the last sentence. I'm sorry. The connection.
Yeah, so that this whole crisis might bring about like some kind of surveillance state that you always have to make known where you are, what you're doing, and so on. So I think that's frightening itself, even if it's not meant to be a surveillance state. There could be cameras everywhere and your phone is being followed and all that. It sounds very much George Orwell, 1984.
Yeah.
So
So
the
from
situation is such that we have pretty sharp questions to answer.
which are those questions?
Is this the world we want to live in? And if not, the world we want to live in. So, and that is the co-creation question. What is the world I want for my children? What is the world I feel good in? And it's definitely not the George Orwell scenario.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really important point about the co-creation, and I also think that to move from the scenario you just sketched towards the co-creation scenario, it's quite a development to make as an individual. So
Yeah.
how would
Yeah.
one go about that?
But I don't think it will happen for everybody, but there are more and more people who are really very conscious and who will not just be victims in the situation. So the co-creation will happen by, let's say, it's the 20/80 rule, that 20% of the people will be involved in the transition and other people will follow. But the leadership will be a collective leadership. That is what I believe.
What does that entail, a collective leadership?
Well, it has to do with collective intelligence, that there is not one person making decisions, that you make them together, and that we move from discussion to dialogue. And like Krishnamurti said, it's the act of listening that will save the world. So there will be no other way than to listen if we want to create a world that everybody wants to contribute to.
Yeah, and can you see it in your environment that people want to contribute to such a world and want to co-create?
Well, definitely for some people, like if you look at just the women's movement that has become much bigger in America, so many more women want to be involved in politics, for instance.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the same evolution, that the feminine version of it will not replace the masculine, but it has to be balanced. So it's not that you want total disorder, but you want a new order that comes of the chaos that is happening now. And the chaos is the feminine principle. It's because chaos is not the same as disorder. Chaos is basically the world of potential. There is no structure. But out of the chaos, new order gets born. And that's why nobody is able to stop, because it's coming from a different place than a human decision. It's an evolution
So from which place is that coming then?
from the world of possibility. See, and that is one of the big plus points of social media and the internet, is that there are so many channels for the word of possibility to manifest, and so many people who are connected who were not connected before. And the whole principle of self-organization is that it happens through connection. So the more connections there are, the more a system is able to be self-organizing. When you look to nature, nature is self-organizing, and nature is totally a world of connection. Everything is connected to everything, and that's why self-organization happens. So we're moving to a world of more connectivity, which makes self-organization possible.
It seems you're speaking also about the implicate order that Bohm has been
Yeah,
researching.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the implicate order can only manifest when there is a channel for it. And those channels have been created by the information age. And that's why I always say we're moving from the information age to the transformation age. And the information age is basically enabling the transformation age. It's due to technology that we can talk right now, while I'm in California and you're in Holland.
yeah, and it takes quite the intention to avail of the possibilities in the right way, I think. So
Well, of course, yeah. It's attention and intention, or the two forces that drive the whole movement,
yeah,
and that's why we were talking about consciousness. There's also people who call the new era the consciousness era,
yeah.
and it doesn't matter which name you give to it. What is happening is that there is a rise of consciousness going on.
Hmm. Yeah, and yet the things that you now name, the intention and attention, might be in these times of crisis the most difficult um, traits to hold
Yeah,
as a human
and
being.
you know the saying, "Rise to the occasion." Uh, that is what will happen. People will rise to the occasion, and we don't need everybody to step forward at the same time. So this 2080 rule is pretty much true, that if 20% of the people are willing to step forward and to connect to each other and to do things locally, there will be things that will change globally. And it's very hard to understand with linear thinking how those things work. But a complex system works in very different ways than the linear thinking can fathom.
Which is also, I think, and not not being said enough, that what you're saying now is actually the reality underneath reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which might be able to work for us if we put our attention to it. But most of the public dialogues are not about that.
No.
They are all about form changes, structure changes, process changes.
Well, the old thinking is still dominating, but it is happening. The reason why I think it will work is that it's a silent revolution. There is nobody saying this is what we're going to do. It is happening in a way that nobody is actually running it. It comes from the world of possibility through the channels that are available. Yeah. So the people who are conscious will be the channels.
Mm-hmm. They will rise to the occasion.
And they will rise to the occasion. Yeah, you're already seeing that. We were talking about the book that is coming in and that you are contributing to, and I am contributing to.
Yeah.
It is already an example of what we're saying, that there are people coming together and saying what is going on and how can we contribute. Yeah. So and I remember one chapters is all about the right to contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I can feel a really clear call right now in the midst of all these crises. I can see that some people are frightened, and understandably frightened. But I think for people that have been working on change and transformation, this is the time. Do you think so too?
Yeah. And I agree. It's totally understandable that there's a lot of fear and worry, but there are also a lot of people connecting now and saying if we want something to change, we'll have to do it together, and not wait for somebody else to tell us what to do. And in this whole black and white scenario, that this might move into a total surveillance state, that is enough of a reason to say that's what we want. So, but then the next question is, what is it we do want? And the co-creation part is that we have to sit together and ask what is the life we want for our children and for nature, because the whole climate issue is also basically connected to this. Climate, environment, relationships, new models of organization, another economy. Like, just to give you one example, the big multinationals that have their production units in several countries and then assemble in one country, they will have to change because they don't want this to happen again. So the whole manufacturing chain will change, to just name one thing. So there will be more local, and the global scene will change. There is no way around that.
Yeah, these are quite forced changes, while you're also speaking about the voluntary roles that we can play in change.
Well, there is a difference between reacting and responding. I think that those multinationals have to respond to what is happening. It's not a reaction. They have to see, like for instance, Boeing, an airplane is assembled in one place, but the parts are being made in tens of different countries. It's very much the question if they will keep doing that in the same way, because right now their whole chain is interrupted. So I think there will be a moving back to more local initiatives that will be connected, but not a linear chain anymore.
Would that look like?
I have no idea. That's the fun of transformation, is that it's something is unfolding. It's not somebody doing it.
Yeah.
But of course, there is a contribution where you are. You need to do what is your response to where you are. And that's how self-organization works. I cannot decide what you are, but if everybody is doing what they can where they are, the entirety will change. So nobody knows exactly what will happen, only the direction and the principles at work.
This
But
would
the
require
details,
adopting new ways of thinking and going about when we are reorganizing our society and our economy at some
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
So,
It is the whole shift from linear thinking to systems thinking, and that has been one of my concerns, is that so few people know what systems thinking is,
mhm,
whereas the whole nature is made out of systems within systems. Like, you look at the human body is a system made of systems. The
yeah.
whole nature is a system made of systems. So the more we go towards systems thinking, the more we align with nature, the more we will be in a co-creation mode. Instead of trying to conquer nature, we'll have to flow with nature. Otherwise, nature will keep calling us back to the drawing table. What is happening now is also nature talking back.
So you're saying that nature is calling us back to the drawing table.
Yeah, we will have to redesign where we want to go. Like, we don't want this to happen again. So it's very interesting that several publications have mentioned that this is basically also a consequence of not treating nature correctly.
Yeah.
That at one point we're responsible for messing with nature enough that this happens.
Yeah. Well, in systems thinking, then nature will also be having a voice in that. So,
Yeah.
what is nature telling us? What does she want us to do?
Well, nature doesn't punish. The whole thing is that when you don't abide by the universal principles, there are consequences. It's not a punishment, it's consequences of the choices you have made. So a system that is not in line with nature, I just run into a saying by Lao Tzu this morning, that everything that is made through force and that is not in line with the Tao, so as he says, will have to crumble eventually. It will last for a while, but if it's not in line with Tao, it has to disintegrate.
Mhm.
So that's the whole question of the implicate order. The implicate order has eternity to wait for us. It's not in a hurry. It's up to us to open up to allow a higher order to rise. But that order already exists. Like, I don't know if you know the saying by Miller, who says nature or creation is already in order. It's up to us to align with that order.
Yeah,
It's basically very much the same as what David Bohm says. The order is there, the implicate order. It has to be brought into the world of the senses.
yeah. And to me, it really feels that this is a time to be able to align.
Yeah, yeah. It's all alignment and harmonizing.
Yeah.
Uh,
But the frightening parts of these times are, of course, and I believe you speak about this in your books. We've created systems that are not alive, not living. So
yeah,
so alignment is quite impossible, and that's I think what we see
yeah,
now. The economic system crumbling
yeah.
is maybe the correct response of the system to
Yeah, well, I make a difference between the word structure and the word system. Like, the structures are mechanistic. A living system is a system, but what the old hierarchy is a structure. It's not alive.
yeah
It's artificial. Whereas when an organization is organized like a complex system, it's in line with nature, because nature is not linear. It's a complex system. And what is the core of a complex system is that everything influences everything. And that's what co-creation is, that everybody can contribute. And if everybody wants to contribute because it's all clear what we all want together, then it just has to happen. But we have to clarify what it is we want.
Mm-hmm.
So in systems thinking, you don't solve the problem. In systems thinking, you ask the question, where is it I want to be in 5 years or 10 years? And then you look, what is my priority? So for people who are aware of the 7 habits of Stephen Covey, that is systems thinking. Like habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. So what is it we want and what is needed to get there? So the old thinking is, what is the problem and how do we solve it?
Mm-hmm.
Systems thinking is you begin with the end in mind. And that is the whole shift in thinking, that you have to decide what you want to create instead of how you want to patch up the old system.
Yeah, and this is a huge paradigm shift that might
Yeah.
be, yeah,
The-
that we have the opportunity to make right now, maybe because everything is fallen away. So this might be the most ideal climate to make that shift. I don't
exactly.
know, but I'm just I'm just
Yeah.
guessing.
Well,
Um,
in the masculine paradigm, a group of especially men are deciding what will happen for everybody. So
yes.
in the new paradigm, we will have to decide together what it is we want. But you and I cannot decide what we want to happen to the world. We can only look at our own environment, and that is how self-organization works. Is that if everybody is locally going towards more principled living, then the entirety of the society will change. But nobody is doing it. It's an inside out movement. So the first of the 7 habits is a chapter that many people don't remember because they want to know about habit number 1. But the first chapter is about transformation, where Stephen Covey says transformation is an inside out movement. It is potential being manifested. Whereas change is working with what is already there. You're trying to change something that already exists. That's not transformation. Transformation is the invisible that becomes visible.
Mhm.
But it needs a channel. It needs to be allowed to unfold, and fear is in the way of that unfolding.
Yes, and how do you get it out of the way?
Well, again, that's not something you can do. So the whole question is, how can we create enough safety that people can speak up? And for a long time it has gone in a totally different direction, that more and more people feel powerless. More and more people say it doesn't mind what I think, it doesn't mind what I say, nobody's listening anyway. So I come back to what Krishnamurti says, what will save the world is the act of listening. And at one point, like what nature is doing now is also, hey, you listen. So we have to listen to what is happening. And again, I don't believe that that will happen at the top. It is the whole world that will have to speak up, and the people who will be the voice for the weak will be the 20%. The people who have enough consciousness and enough connection with each other that they can make a difference, because nobody can do this alone. There will be networks. Yeah. Another chapter in the book we were talking about is about the whole Aquarius conspiracy. The Aquarius, the whole new period is also called the time of Aquarius. Is the informal networks are creating the change. That is what the Aquarius conspiracy is about, and that is my hope, that there will be informal networks being formed by self-organization, and that will change the world. And that's why it's so difficult to understand, and it's normal that people don't believe that because they don't know how systems work. But those informal networks are being formed right now. You and I talking is part of that.
Yeah.
It's happening, but it's happening. It's not doing. It's a happening.
Yeah, and in some way, I believe also it's a doing. I felt the impulse to do these interviews, and I showed up for it, even
Yeah.
though it scares the shit out of me to do these things
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
makes me public in a way and I feel exposed in a way, yet
yeah,
I feel called.
yeah,
And while doing these interviews, which is very interesting to me, I'm an economist. So, but I can't avail of my economic theories when
yeah,
discussing this
right.
new world,
Yeah,
and it's really something that is a bit of a mind fuck.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
really feel called to be able to give voice to what you are saying now, for
yeah.
example.
But you see, the fact that you're being called is not you doing it. It comes
Yeah,
through you. You're
yeah.
a channel. So the informal networks are channels for the change, for the transformation, not the change. Let's be more specific.
Hmm.
So there are more people like you that feel that they're being called, and that is the Aquarius conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy like all the conspiracy theories that are going around right now. Conspiracy is more like a coming together and creating something together, not in the negative sense.
Yeah. And indeed, what you're saying, I think, is very true, that it's already happening. Your daily practice, my daily practice, we are continuously operating in informal networks, sharing knowledge,
Right. Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
work together.
Yeah.
Um, we're all people that work from a free state, from ourselves. And I think that is maybe the greatest gift right now, to be able to bring forth what wants to come forth from
Yeah.
within.
Yeah.
So that's to me what the calling is about. And then you
Yeah.
show up, and then you
Yeah.
act, then you take action, then you reach out. And I've found that reaching out has made uh, this project, for example, so much bigger than I could have ever made it, because people are
Yeah.
contributing and taking up their
Yeah.
roles, and
Yeah.
so it's growing and growing, which is
Yeah.
wonderful, of course. And also, it is becoming more and more unconventional.
Yeah.
So your insights are the insights that are necessary to create the new. But I think a
Yeah.
lot of people will have really a big trouble with understanding or
Of
implementing it
course.
in their lives right now.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your dream for your future? What world do you want to live in?
Well, I'm totally focused at this point. If you ask about my personal dream, is to do something about trauma, because I believe, like Peter Levine says, that trauma is the most underestimated problem of mankind. And it's the reason we have wars, it's the reason we have relationship breakups, it's the reason about crime. Trauma, recently there has been a video circulating on social media about a project in a prison where people are in a circle and they step forward if they had some trauma in their life, and everybody enters the cycle. They all have trauma. So that's not an excuse for what they did, it's an explanation. Is that trauma robs people of their soul, and that's when you do criminal things because you're no longer who you are. And like Eckhart Tolle says, it's only people who are hurt that are hurting other people. So I want to contribute to how can we help people to step out of the chains, not the change, the chains of their past, and help them to be who they are. And what they are co-creative beings, and with talent and the possibility to contribute. But unless we solve the suffering in people, we will have suffering between. So that's my dream, to contribute to that. And one of my questions has been, there are way many people traumatized and there are therapists. So we basically need people to be able to help themselves to get out of it. And that's my whole research. How can we make people aware of what they're dealing with and what they can do for it? And that's how I want to contribute to this whole revolution, transformation.
I think that is a very beautiful and very necessary field of work. You're not going to believe this, but this is actually what I'm writing about in a book that we just are talking about.
Okay, well, I believe you because it's part of what is happening. We need to heal.
Yeah.
As individuals, as relationships, as a society, we need to heal. So much pain has been afflicted by the masculine time. The healing is the feminine that will bring the connection, compassion, and all that. That is what we need, is to allow the healing to happen. And so many people are called, like you, to contribute to the healing. Systems are whole. A system, what is a system? It's something that is bigger than the parts. So to be able to work as a system, we have to re what is what now we have to discover the wholeness and the wholeness into the world. And that's what it basically is to rediscover that the wholeness is already there. It's in us.
Yeah. And as whole people, will we create whole systems or structures?
Well, as soon as you are who you really are, you cannot do bad things. You're basically aware that you're part of a system, and you will not destroy the net that you're part of. It's like that is what we're doing. When we're not thinking in terms, we are destroying the planet for our children. That doesn't make sense.
You were just speaking about trauma in relation to people in captivation, the criminalized
The prisons, yeah.
the prisons, yeah, the criminalized situations. Uh, but what you're speaking now is actually, in a way, criminal too, and which is not. We are damaging nature,
Yeah.
and in a way that is criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm wondering, who is the crime directed to? Is it to nature or is it to ourselves?
Well, there is no difference. We are nature. And that is the whole consciousness that has to arise, that we don't have to conquer nature. We have to realize that we are nature. And that by destroying nature, we're destroying ourselves. It doesn't make sense at all. But when it becomes a collective consciousness, then things can transform. And that is the beauty of what is happening in the world with social media, that that collective consciousness can change. And there are enough people who are aware. I am totally optimistic about that, that there are enough people who are aware and who want to do something about it. And it's not the politicians. That's not where the change will come from. It will come from us, and not with a revolution in the streets. It's a silent revolution.
I like that idea of the silent revolution.
Yeah, it's happening, and that is why it cannot be stopped, because nobody's seeing what's happening, because it's all over the place and it doesn't have a structure, but it's happening and nobody can stop it.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm optimistic in a world that is so in shambles right now. I still am optimistic because it is an inside out movement. It's the world of possibility that has channels to bring a new order, and it will happen through connection, through community, through empathy, through listening.
It sounds non-invasive. Silent
Yeah,
revolution. Normally, a revolution is reactive. It's quite
yeah,
aggressive.
yeah, yeah.
And it sounds non-invasive, which makes it more peaceful in a way. Is it because it might be driven now by more feminine values?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and it's also systems thinking is basically the feminine principle. Like Buckminster Fuller said, don't change the old, create the new. That is systems thinking. Fighting the old order is only creating more damage. So we don't have to fight. And that is what you see in all those conspiracy theories. It's like we have to fight the 1% and the elite and all that. That is not the way to go. We have to create a new world. Create what you want instead of fighting what you don't want. And that doesn't happen with a global intention. It happens with a local intention. What is it I want for me, for my children, for my community?
Yeah, the thing that you're saying now about you just mentioned something. I just lost it. But the point I wanted to make was for people in countries where the divide between rich and poor is becoming horribly painful right now.
I live in a country like that.
There may be like that, but to be in quarantine is quite a luxury. To be in a home, to have food,
yeah.
Able to be able to go without work for maybe a little while or a longer time. So to me, the one of the most painful things of these times is the divide that's becoming so very clear.
Yeah.
How would the people living at the pulling at the shortest end of this divide be able to put this into practice? What you're saying right now,
they can't. There is so much powerlessness, and if you look at a country like Syria, how many millions of people have been driven out of their houses? They cannot, as individuals, change that. So basically, the old paradigm is responsible for what is happening in Syria. It's not only the Syrians. Why is there happening in Syria what is happening? It's because of the old way of thinking and exploiting and greed and all that. So those people are suffering from the old paradigm. So it's when the paradigm changes that also poverty can be dealt with. There is enough for everybody, but not in the old paradigm. So the whole question of a basic income for everybody, those are questions that are becoming very, very, very much the order of the day. In Spain, they're already thinking of it, to have a basic income now because of the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So here in the United States, checks from the government are being sent to your home. That's not the same, but see, the whole income paradigm will have to change. The more, and it will be even more when artificial intelligence will become even a bigger force. More jobs here in the future. I guess apart from service jobs, most jobs are basically on the way to disappearing. People don't realize what artificial intelligence will do to society. So we will have to have a world where income doesn't depend anymore on your hours of work. It will have to change. There's no other way. So look at all the jobs that can be replaced by artificial intelligence. It's the majority.
Mm-hmm.
So there will even be self-driving trucks, to name something. Even a driver of a truck can be replaced. So we have no clue what is coming.
Yeah.
But it is coming. So
when we speak about it like this, then what comes to mind is how that it's such a responsibility to become aware and to become conscious of the choices that we have to make now for the world that we really want to live in.
Yeah. I think there is one value that tops all the others and that moves people more than anything else, and that's their children. When you talk about children, people are willing to die for them. So when you ask what is the world you want for your children, you get commitment of people. I would do anything for my children, and so will most people. So we have to focus on the children. That is what will move people to get out of their fears, because then you get the courage to do something because you want it for your children and you don't question that. So that's my belief, that if you focus on the children, you have a chance to get enough people involved.
And you might also make an appeal to what is innate in people, is the courage that we need to take to go through this insecurity.
Yeah. See, when it comes to it, you put all your fears aside to save your children.
Yeah.
And that is probably what we can have as a common drive, is that we want a better world for our children, and definitely not a world that is disintegrating. It's a world with clean air and clean water and respect for nature and sane relationships. Of course, that's what we want. Even if we didn't had it all our lives, it's what we want for our children.
Yeah. So that's a question that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, it immediately does something at another level than your intellectual level. When I ask that, what do you want for your children, and what are you willing to do for it?
Yeah.
You just say, tell me what to do, and I will do it.
Well, what I'm noticing now when we speak about it is that a lot of the bullshit, I'm sorry for the cursing, it just falls away.
Yeah.
It becomes quite focused and clear that the urgency becomes so clear.
Yeah. So I just posted something about the three phases of the crisis. A crisis has like an introduction where people are still in their comfort zone and they think, well, it will not be all that bad and it's not happening for me. So, and then the crisis hits, and then you have all the crisis management that is going on now. And then the third phase is called the learning phase. So, what do we learn from the crisis? And as long as we don't question our values, we don't learn anything. The key question of the learning after a crisis is, what is really important now? And if I mention the children, you're immediately involving everybody who has children, and that's a lot of people. What do you want for your children? That is a value. And what is a value? A value is not an abstract concept. It is what is really important for you. What creates the value in life. Well, what is more valuable than your children? And so that is what we have to do now. We have to talk about values, and values that are really true for people immediately create commitment and emotional engagement. So we have to talk about values. And that doesn't happen at a government level. They're not talking about values, they're talking about restoring the economy. Of course, we need to have a healthy economy, but not the same as before. We have to question our values. And that is what can locally happen with people, is that we ask the question, what is really important and what are we willing to do for it?
Well, I think it's undeniable at this moment that some parts of the economic structures that we have created have become very invaluable, that we can really easily do without when we need to.
Yeah.
Which also brings up question marks on how have we lived. Well, at least it does with me. How have I lived? And the choices that I've made were maybe the automatic choices to make or the easy choices to make, while now it feels like a clean slate and I can make new choices. Indeed, based on what is important right now and what is important for my children. And what are the things that you would say that you find important enough that you want to take with you into the future?
Well, I'm pretty much focused on what I said before, is that this whole question of transgenerational trauma that affects the children, we have to heal parents to heal the children too. This whole movement of healing, what I as an ideal scene is that it doesn't depend only on therapists, because I don't want to rule out the therapist. There might be, for a lot of people, the need to also have a therapist. But I believe in healing circles, that everywhere in the world we can have people who come together to heal their past. And just like you have AA, alcoholics, that does more in the world for healing than all the therapists together. A circle like that, where there is safety, where people can cry and be angry and nobody judges them. So I believe in a movement of healing circles, and that is part of the self-organizing that I can see happen. If you heal the parents, then the children will be too.
It's interesting that you're naming healing circles. The people that I've been interviewing up until now, and the upcoming interviews will also, I think, be like that. It feels like we're forming a healing circle, providing a completely new perspective on creating the future.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for naming it that way.
Yeah. Well, what we discussed, what happened in that prison in California is basically healing. That people, and then you first see the big, then you see in smaller groups and the crying and the anger, and that people can just get that pain out, and that they can do together. That is for me definitely part of how we will another future, is by healing the past, not denying it, but but getting back to who we really are. That is a matter of healing, because the wholeness in us has to be brought into the light. So yeah, I in that way I feel I am contributing. I feel that there is hope, and it can be done. It can be done. Imagine in all the cities in Holland that there are people coming together to heal, what that would do to society. And people want healing. There's so much pain. When you look at it, so much suffering in relationships. It like now when people are being sequestrated in quarantine, like where there's violence in the homes, that the statistics of that are going up wildly because people are basically throwing their pain at each other. So that's what we need to deal with. All the pain that is living in people. That is in the way of creative living.
Of all people, even the people that, or maybe particularly the people that fill a very important role in society, it's of course the same. There's pain there too, and
yeah, of course.
potential for healing.
Yeah, hurt people, and what we want is creation, not destruction.
Yeah. So on that note.
Yeah, yeah. But the fact that we're talking about it changes something, because we're all part of that network, the web of life, and the fact that many people are now having this kind of discussions is changing the field, because the field is being changed by information first, because information is what comes before form. Form is information becoming visible. So we're changing the information, and that is what transformation is. The information changes, does the form changes.
Mm-hmm. So it can be as simple as having a dialogue like this.
Yeah, dialogue will change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And in dialogue, you listen without judging and you connect. If we can do that, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
I believe it is possible, and I believe it will happen. Not top down, it's horizontal, it's not vertical.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
All right.
So Jan, thank you so much for this conversation.
My pleasure. Yeah.
I think we have made available some beautiful transmittance.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, and enjoy your evening. For us, it's noon now in California.
Then you enjoy your day.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.